community. Let's tell you. Yeah, it's true. Okay, good. When you start that URL, that any part of the URL, are you hearing me? Not add equal to, that's why equal to something. Let's tell you. Some people don't.
Hello, can you hear me all?
Yeah, tell us. So if I had not called you, the letter would have been there for 1 week. Well, I've asked you to, I think you have signed it. Please send it to the promoter. Yes, I think I got you. I just signed it. Yes, I told him. Thank you. I think this Kodaya man. Okay. Am I? Yes. Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Donko.
Yeah, good afternoon, my brother. How are you?
Fine.
Pleasure. Are you? Yes. Yes. It's my first time seeing you.
Yeah, same here. Pleasure to meet you.
Actually, you look like the president of Ghana. I'm telling you. You look alike. You look like President Nana.
Oh, very well.
So one day you become the minister for
yes, thank you. Thank you very. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Okay, wonderful.
Okay. Just checking up on make sure everyone can hear me.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Dozie. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great.
Good afternoon. It's Dr. Johnson here.
Good afternoon, Dr. Johnson.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Johnson.
Hi, Uzoma. How are you?
Very well.
Been a while.
It has, yes. Yeah.
How's the world of tech? I see your new gig now, Sparkle. Is it Sparkle?
Sparkle, yes. Actually,
Yes.
I'm following you.
You're following? Well, it's going well though. Lots of good stuff happening.
Yes.
Very good stuff. Yeah.
I think the present condition is helping the tech space onwards.
It is actually, yes. It's not good for health, but it's good for tech, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. But it will be good for health very soon with more tech.
It will. Yes, there's a lot of innovation.
Good afternoon, GB. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hi, good afternoon.
How's it going?
I'm very well, thank you.
I think everyone is here. I think we're still waiting on the minister to join. And once I get the go ahead from the team, I think we start. Dr. Johnson, I've been told that you need to leave slightly early. So I'll try and get your questions in.
Thank you. I need to go back to a board meeting at 3 o'clock. I don't know why I thought the panel was yesterday, and I thought it ended at 3. So apologies. So I've had to step out of the board meeting. But
I think the latter part of the session is more questions from the audience. So
sure, okay.
I'll try and get your direct questions to you as early as possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
What is a mute and unmute?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christine Sijuwade. I was just waiting. I was listening to the banter, and I'm very happy that at this chemistry on this panel. We're going to start in 2 minutes or so. I think we're still waiting for the minister. I'm just going to check in with Real One regarding his status. I'll come back to it shortly.
Afternoon, Mr. Udo or Miss Udo. Good afternoon. Welcome to the MBA session on our new world, the digital economy. On the panel with me today, the Honorable Minister, Dr. Issa Pantami, Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Dr. George Donko, President of the ECOWAS Bank of Investment and Development, Dr. Omobola Johnson, Senior Partner at TLCom Capital, Mr. Uzoma Dozie, Founder and CEO at Sparkle, and Mr. G.B. Abola, Founder and CEO at Flutterwave. My name is Ayo Ogunkomi, and I'm partner at Oak Advisory. In this session, we'll talk about new digital economy, the effects COVID and other factors have had, as well as one or two topical issues that have arisen. Now, 2020 has been a turbulent year for everyone. Even before the COVID pandemic, much of the world was already experiencing an economic downturn. Low oil prices in the early parts of the year also had a knock-on effect on the Nigerian economy. Yet, in 2020, we've seen that there are winners in this new economy. For example, digital economies have been able to take advantage of contactless systems and other forms of delivery services. I might like to speak to each of the panelists quickly and get their thoughts on what is the state of the digital economy this year, starting with Dr. Donko. Doctor, I think your mic is
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Yes.
And I would like to first and foremost express my appreciation to the Nigeria Bar Association for their kindness of inviting me to be part of this your annual conference, the 60th annual conference of the Nigeria Bar Association. I count it a great privilege. More so when I'm also a lawyer. I'm a lawyer enrolled in Ghana law. Enrolled at the Ghana Bar. And I have practiced also for, I think this is my 26 years in practice as a lawyer. And I deem it a great privilege to be part of this important program. Now, the question regarding the assessment of the state of our digital economy. The state of the global digital economy can better be measured by the performance of digital companies and the uptake of digital products by individuals, organizations, and nations. Let us recall that the Apple Incorporated became the first US firm to reach $2 trillion valuation in August 2020, having become the world's first company to reach the US $1 trillion mark 2 years ago. We are all aware that the Apple stands for and the role it has played in digitization. The personal wealth of the founder and CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, breached the $200 billion mark in August 2020 as Amazon stock prices skyrocketed. Zoom Video Technologies was profitable before it listed on the NASDAQ in March 2019. A very rare feature for a company looking to go public. Its stock price increased by 80% almost immediately after listing, indicating how valuable it was perceived. The above are just a few examples that I can give relating to the subject matter, and they speak to the uptake of digitization by the citizenry, since stock valuation is driven by market sentiments, which is underlined by company product appeal and patronage. There is no question about the global uptake of digitization. This has been heightened by virtual meetings, which have become the order of the day. In effect, digitization drives the world economy. Now, as the biggest economy in Africa, that is, I'm talking about the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and with one of the biggest populations, and currently the population of Nigeria stands around 201 million. Nigeria is well positioned to develop a strong digital economy, which could transform the country's economy. Nigeria's international connectivity is well developed, and there are new digital platforms such as the Central Portal for Government Services. However, additional efforts should be made to improve digital infrastructure. I mean, in the rural areas need to be covered by fixed broadband infrastructure. And again, we must also look at strengthening the digital platforms, roll out of normal identification records to all Nigerians. This will also strengthen the digital economy. Again, we need to also increase access to digital financial services. As of today, about 60 million Nigerian adults are without access to formal accounts, stalling the country towards financial inclusion. We must also look at the closed digital skills gap, increase enrollment in basic education, and strengthen science and math education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Donko. Dr. Johnson, we know TLCom raised some money earlier this year towards investment. Would you say that this has also still been a good year for you from an investment perspective?
Thank you very much, Ayamiko, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here speaking to the MBA conference this year. Has it been a good year? I mean, I think the jury is still out. Of course, we have been investing this year, unlike other VC firms, we have actually continued to invest. But of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected many of our portfolio companies in the sense that, economic activities have slowed down. And so therefore, their own activities have been slowed down, particularly if they're not involved in the health or the in the health or the education sectors. But to be honest, they have all managed to come out of the pandemic. Well, we're not out of the pandemic yet, but they have come out, they're surviving. And we know that as we continue to the year and into 2021, things are actually going to get better. Maybe I can also just, talk about something that Dr. Donko said, and it's a very important point, which I really just wanted to elaborate on. And that is really the basis upon which the digital economy rests. He talked about infrastructure. And I think it's a very important point to mention at this time that, we can't have a digital economy if we don't have the infrastructure upon which that economy will rest and will thrive. And he mentioned around the rural areas. Now, Nigeria has done well, but, we could do better. Today we have, 4G coverage, which is the fastest coverage that we have in this country. It's only 50% of the country. So many parts of the country don't have 4G coverage and so therefore cannot participate effectively in a digital economy. I think we also need to talk about the affordability. While we're doing okay in terms of how much it costs to actually get on the internet and participate in the digital economy, Nigeria is third in Africa. But of course, there's still a lot of work to do, particularly when you look at the cost of accessing the internet versus the average income of the average Nigerian. So yes, we are doing well, But there are many areas where we can do better: affordability, the infrastructure, the access, and of course skills. And that's the biggest part. Do we have the skills that we need to actually participate in this digital infrastructure? Do we have enough software engineers, network engineers, data scientists? We don't, and that's one area where we need to focus on going forward. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that answer. GB, as a market participant, everyone has mentioned that a lot of tech companies, a lot of digital companies have been able to leverage. As a processor for these companies, have you seen that growth in terms of your business?
Thanks, Ayomiko. Yes, we have, right? But beyond seeing growth, right, we have to basically create the avenue for growth. That's what I saw over the last couple of months. It wasn't that the growth just came by itself, right? For example, a lot of our clients obviously stopped transacting because of the pandemic. The airlines, travel companies, hotels couldn't, of course, have customers at this period. What we did at Flutterwave was to build a store platform for the small merchants who have been displaced by COVID, right? When the lockdown was in effect, a lot of them couldn't open their stores and their shops. So we built a store solution for them, basically an online shop that they can use to basically sell online and be able to, appeal to our customers anywhere in the world, which has helped greatly. We've been able to onboard over 6,000 small merchants on this platform, and that has helped to, of course, accelerate digital payments across board. So I think beyond just expecting to see growth in this sector at this time, there has to be, deliberate effort to basically help companies who are affected at this time and basically help to scale them across board. That has helped us in our own case, and we've seen a lot of growth across board. And yes, e-commerce has gone through the roof right now, as well as all digital payment like, entertainment payment from Netflix to Microsoft to all those payments, they've grown significantly thanks to this period.
Great. Yes, I also add that even I've had to be using a digital platform like yours to process my payments. Mr. Dozie, how has 2020 been for Sparkle and your business? So I think your mic is muted.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this very exciting, sparkling panel. I think I'll just to extend to what Dr. Johnson said on how well we've done. Beyond the infrastructure, which I think we've made a lot of effort. I think what is also missing is that leadership. So we have all this infrastructure but then it's how we use it from a leadership perspective. Now that needs to change, and it will also help with better legislation and regulation. And we're beginning to see efforts from those two different areas in trying to make new laws that will help people adopt digital. I mean, for Sparkle, we started. I mean, the whole idea of Sparkle was to provide a platform for small businesses and individuals to get on with their lives. And to do that as an organization, we also had to be digital and we had to also be remote. So the disruption, in terms of building Sparkle, there was no disruption because our business is based on cloud. We're not reliant on physical presence, and most of our partners were also digital inclined. And so it has been good from that perspective. And I like to say that what COVID has done has created more awareness of digital. But people have always been aware of digital, but I think where the impact has been is appreciation, because during the lockdown, people realized that they had to actually use digital solutions or they were just completely locked out of the economy. Now, in using digital solutions for an extended period of time, that appreciation, right, they began to see heightened appreciation. Oh, so I can do this with digital. I don't have to drive 10 for 2 hours. I don't have to go to these places. I can get things delivered to me. I can get health services or educational services. And now, so it is, will they go back to status quo? I doubt it. And so that adoption is going to be increased. And so that's how we see 2020 has been disruptive from an economic perspective, but it's also created a good reason for the whole economy, whether it's private sector, whether it's the public sector, to really begin to think of how they can leverage technology to really redefine the way we do things.
Thank you very much for that question. And in fact, we've already seen some comments from some of the lawyers in the chat. We'll still get to their questions at some point. The minister is still joining us. I know he joined for a second and dropped off. So we'll come back to him, but I want to move on to the next question in the interest of time. So as we've mentioned, emerging technology like cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, big data, Mr. Dozie just mentioned, they are all dominating the economic and social landscape. Mr. Donko, I just want to get your perspective, especially from EBID's role, as an investment institution, where you see the future going in terms of those areas.
Being ushered into a full-blown and long-lasting age of disruptive technologies, a phase that makes us move faster, and more efficient and more smarter. The way we used to do banking or do business has changed for good. There is a great emphasis on e-business and e-banking rather than on a brick and mortar banking. For example, e-payment platforms, including mobile money payments, have taken center stage, enabling millions that were previously unbanked to own bank accounts. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we are all aware, has made this phase all the more pronounced, highlighting the need for virtual rather than physical meetings, as evidenced by the 2020 Annual General Conference of the Nigeria Association. That's what we are doing now. Instead of physical meeting, you've resorted to virtual meeting, as well as the need to replace manual processes and procedures with digital solutions. In effect, the fourth industrial revolution, as it is called, has come to stay. And the harsh reality is that those that fail to adapt will be left behind. That is the reason EBID, that is the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, is always exploring technological options that will simplify its processes to make it more responsive to the needs of its clients. Maybe for the purpose of those who may not be abreast of EBID, ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development is the international financial institution owned by the 15 ECOWAS member countries. And I'm sure we are all aware of the 15 member ECOWAS countries, for which Nigeria is the largest shareholder. Let me emphasize that. Nigeria has been a big father and has been the largest shareholder. The bank actually was established in 1975, at the same time when the ECOWAS Commission was also established. But it started operation in 1979 as then the ECOWAS Fund for Compensation, Cooperation and Development. It operated as a fund for 20 years until 1999, when the Authority of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS formally transformed the fund into a bank. So from 1999, it has operated as a bank. And the main objective of this bank is to finance development projects and programs within the ECOWAS member countries in the area of energy, technology, agriculture, education and health. And I'm happy to inform you that as of today, the bank has invested about $2.9 billion in the various economies of the 50 member countries. Now, coming back to the issue, the question, the bank is digitizing all its processes in the year 2020. The reason is very simple. We are all aware that virtual and digital wealth is now the order of the day. The bank has made good use of big data in seeking to understand that, seeking to understand the profile of our clients, particularly private sector ones, the line of business they are engaging, key characteristics of that line of business in their country of origin, as well as consumer behavior patterns in the industry. This information guide the bank in assessing the bankability of projects and inform the decision to lend or not to lend. Again, the bank has also embarked on artificial intelligence, as was just mentioned. The bank is amenable to using AI technology to optimize its internal and external operations, while freeing staff to focus on innovation to enhance our chances of achieving our strategic objectives. With application of big data, AI solution can also help us determine project bankability more expeditiously. Again, as mentioned earlier, we are also utilizing cloud computing. There are different technologies for various business models, and it's very crucial that management at a bank, with the help of IT professionals, identifies what will suit their needs. EBID has adopted cloud computing, enabling staff that are mostly on the move to various countries or missions to access their files wherever. And this makes us work smarter and more efficiently. That said, it is not every data of the bank that has been put on the cloud. Some critical personal data have been restricted to on-site access only to guard against possible hacks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that answer, and also even giving us some, history of EBID and its role. Mr. Dozie, you mentioned in your last question about Sparkle, and I'm a bit interested to learn more about how Sparkle is working. And you mentioned some of the things I'd already spoke about, like big data and AI, as well as having to deal with businesses. So could you please elaborate a bit more for what Sparkle does and what role it plays?
Okay, thank you very much. For Sparkle, there are two big segments that need to be addressed, and that's consumers and small businesses. Now, to provide repeatable, consistent, cost-effective service for two segments, that you need to use a platform that you can scale those services. And so that's where digital comes in. And so we're building a digital platform. We build a digital platform to provide banking, financial, and lifestyle services. Now, on the small business side, what we're trying to do there is not just provide banking services, but leverage on technology to provide business support services, taxation, working with lawyers for legal services, helping them with their inventory. The whole idea is that you can't use, especially from experience in my last job, there's a limit to what humans can do to help small business in terms of financial advisory, tax services. If over 30 million businesses today decided to pay their taxes, for example, in Nigeria, who are the tax consultants where are the tax consultants to help them? Can they afford them? And it is practicable. So those are the things that we believe that using APIs, we can actually help. As you do your business, it just works out how much tax, or whether you're paying tax or not. Access to legal services. How do we help? How do we link with platforms like legal companies to democratize legal services? So you pay as you go, and you're actually using systems. On the educational side, especially for small businesses, we are leveraging on artificial intelligence and machine learning, and we're using chatbots. So if you want to provide advisory services to small businesses, how do you do that? If you could teach a chatbot on different things like taxation, like marketing and branding, and now the small business can ask these questions in its own language. Now this is make it easier than the alternative is to take 200 people into a classroom and hope that they assimilate it and hope that they give the same repeated consistent message. And then I think the third one is insights. Using your data to understand, using your data to provide insights to give so that you can make better financial decisions. Now this cuts across whether you're an individual or a small business. So we built Sparkle from the ground up. So what we did was we used an open source banking system and built our solutions around how Nigerians and how Nigerian businesses work. Because the actual fact is that the characteristics of the small business environment in any country will always be different, depending on the laws, the state of the infrastructure, and all. So what we're trying to do really, and to link it to that first question that you asked about the state of the digital economy, is that, and the way we see it is that for every business, how paperless, what's the level of your paper, how paperless are you, how cashless are you, and now is the state of how contactless are you, especially with things like COVID-19. So this is how we're going to start measuring how digital a business is, whether you're a corporate business, whether you're an individual or a small business. And so people have all these devices in their offices, but how are you leveraging it to say, okay, I'm going to have a paperless office, I'm going to use less paper, we're going to be more secure, more trustworthy. So that's what Sparkle is trying to do. We're trying to work with our customers, connecting with different platforms that are using digital to provide that kind of service.
Great. I'd like to greet the representative of the minister, Mr. Olufemi Adeluyi. Unfortunately, the minister is still on his way, as I've been told. Welcome to the panel, sir.
Thank you very much, Ayo.
Before we continue to the next section, I want to just quickly get GB's thoughts as well as to the relevance of things like cryptocurrency and these new digital financial services. I mean, considering the current state of the market, regulators are a bit, we say, confused or not so well informed in terms of how these things and the risks on both sides. Do you think that we're going to see more of those sort of technologies this year in Nigeria?
Well, I like the question. I believe that. Can you hear me?
Yes. No, actually, sorry, I was addressing the question to Mr. Bola.
No problem. No problem. It's fine.
I'm still coming. Sorry, 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks. So yes, there's a legal gray area right now when it comes to cryptocurrency. I'm still relying on our lawyers I follow with to shed more light on that, right? But as you know, regulation is always behind innovation, which is not a bad thing, right? Regulation is supposed to ensure that all the payment infrastructure is all properly done well for the economy. However, I think that cryptocurrency is as a place where specifically is still in a lot of flux, right? But CBN in Nigeria, for example, they are very open to innovation. We've seen the sandbox CBN just created for fintech innovation, which I think will encourage all these new technologies to be safely tested and practiced, within a confined audience, for CBN to have, data around how practical it can be to the Nigerian public or the payment system, right? So the jury is still out there on that, but CBN has done the right thing by creating the sandbox infrastructure that will allow companies or payment companies or anyone pretty much to be able to test new innovation safely, right, within the confinement of regulation.
Great. Sorry, coming back to Mr. Olufemi Adeluyi, my question was actually going to be on the back of his response. So as you know, His Excellency Honorable Minister, was involved in the privacy regulation in his time at NIDA. Now as well, he's leading the sort of digital transformation strategy for the federal government. And as you can see, it's even from the market participants. While there are some comments, generally government is getting a good score. So we'd like to know a little bit more about the digital transformation strategy and where it's going, where the policy direction is going, so that we as lawyers can go along with you.
So thank you. The government is committed, the federal government is committed to digitizing the economy, and that's why Mr. President redesignated the ministry and called it the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, because the new mandate, as it were, for the ministry is to focus on the development of digital economy. And a digital economy policy and strategy was developed, and Mr. President launched it last November. That document has been released, and it is based on a number of pillars. I'm sure you have seen it, but I mean, for the benefit of those that haven't, I could just quickly mention them. The first one is on developmental regulation. The second pillar is on digital literacy and skills. The third pillar is on solid infrastructure. Fourth pillar is on service infrastructure. Fifth pillar is on digital services development and promotion. Sixth pillar is on soft infrastructure that takes care of things like cybersecurity. Seventh pillar talks about digital services development and promotion. And then the eighth pillar talks about indigenous content development and adoption. Now, the whole idea is to focus on the different aspects that can help us develop the digital economy. Thankfully, I'm sure you got to read the recent GDP report that was released on Monday. You notice that the ICT sector's contribution to GDP has increased by about 26%. It's now 17.83%. So we're having some traction in that area, and there's a lot of roles that the Nigerian Bar Association and the lawyers can play. I'm sure as we go on in the discussion, I can specify those some more. But that policy document is what is guiding our digital transformation process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I've been just sent your details. You are Dr. Olufemi Adeluyi, technical assistant to the minister. Apologies for.
No, doesn't matter.
So before we go on, though, I move on to the next question. There are one or two things that I know that have happened in the market that are either related to digital economy, or should we say adjacent to the news that we'd like to get your thoughts on. Especially, for example, there will be complaints in terms of recent NIPOST regulations. I'm sure you've been aware of that. And also at Lagos state level, even though I know that state and federal is slightly different, as well as the NBC new guidelines, even though I know it's a slightly different, it does affect streaming companies on the digital platform, and that's something that I know one or two people have mentioned to me as a little bit of an area of concern. I don't know if you could maybe walk us through those a bit,
Okay, well, the first one about NIPOST is directly under the supervision of the minister. So, I mean, I can talk more about that. They released some upgraded fees, if I may call it. The minister felt that a whole lot must be done before that type of thing can be released. I mean, there must be some engagement. And considering the fact that, there's been, and people are just coming out, I mean, we're still in the COVID era, as it were. Many businesses have not yet fully recovered. So it looked as if it was callous to just increase the cost with arbitrarily, I mean, increase it suddenly. So I'm sure you also saw in the papers that the minister, immediately he got wind of that, he asked them to withdraw it. And so it has been withdrawn. So it's back to status quo. And the stakeholders will be engaged properly before anything is released. And the whole idea is to make sure that you are not in the process of trying to generate revenue, you are not destroying the potential of the businesses to even be profitable. So that is that on NIPOST. Concerning your question about NBC, like you said, NBC is not directly under the supervision of the minister, but I would like to add that there's a body called the National Frequency Management Council, and the minister is the chairman of that council. NBC is part of that council. So the council gives bulk frequencies to NBC and to other organizations. So on that level, we try to engage them and get them to see reason that, we're playing for the same team, so we should work towards scoring and not scoring own goals. So the discussion is still on.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. That was very clear. Moving to Ms. Johnson on the same point of, government regulation. As a former minister in the space and also a key investor, what are your general thoughts on the general direction of, and beyond this general direction of government policy? I know you mentioned infrastructure earlier. What sort of areas would you say the government can zero in into?
Thanks. I mean, I think, look, general direction of government policy is good. It is in the right direction. I think, first of all, renaming the ministry, digital economy, gives a broader sense to what we're trying to do. But having said that, the creation or the development of the digital economy is not just the remit of the Ministry of Communication Technology. It basically covers the whole economy. It's agriculture, finance, health, education, but it does need somebody to anchor it. So from that perspective, they're coming at it from the right direction. But there are many things that are still required. I've talked about infrastructure and the need for there to be interventions to ensure that we do get the right kind of infrastructure in this country, whether it is around fiber, around spectrum. Really, I mean, one of the big disappointments was for regulation during the COVID pandemic, where there was a huge surge of people requiring data, and there was congestion on the networks because this was totally unexpected. In other countries, what the governments had done was actually give spectrum free to the telcos and say, use this spectrum to manage the data surge that you have right now and ensure that people do get the connectivity that they need. It was talked about very often in Nigeria, but it was never done. And that was a big disappointment. So that's one area where I think regulation has failed. The other area that I will talk about is around venture capital, and that's what I'm doing now. I think that government is a good convener and a good catalyzer. And by regulation, I know that there's a policy, maybe it's a regulation that is out there around trying to increase the size of the venture capital private equity industry. There's a lot of money, but it's coming from outside. If you look at I just saw some numbers this morning. In 2017, I think we had $64 million came into this country as venture capital. By 2019, we had $747 million come into this country. So you can see almost a tenfold increase in 2 or 3 years. It's a lot of money, but it's still not enough. And I think that there's something that government can do, whether it's in terms of, it's really in terms of policy and direction to encourage more venture capital, not just coming from outside of the shores of this country, but coming locally so that people can actually see venture capital as an alternative means of investment. I think there's a big amount of work that government can do in that particular area. Benga mentioned something, and that was when he said, innovation should come before regulation. That's absolutely right. And one of the things that we've seen, again, is sometimes policy or government tries to, with their regulation, they try and stifle innovation. The whole notion of a digital economy is new. To most of us in Africa, it's new. Probably all around the world, it's new. So, but sometimes when government tries to get ahead of itself, they regulate without thinking about it. And of course, the Lagos State one is the easiest one to think about, where you're putting in place regulation that what they do is actually they stifle innovation in the industry. And so when you do that, what it does that you can't regulate before the innovation is done. People content is important because to build a digital economy requires content. If there's nothing to do on the internet, nobody's going to go and do it. Nobody's going to get on the internet. So when you're stifling content development, when you're stifling, I know Benga maybe doesn't want to talk about the kind of issues they've had with the fintechs have, with the central bank, with the banks themselves. There's so many things that are going on that are stifling innovation in this country today. And if we don't address that quickly, we will actually begin to see a reduction in the excitement, in the money that is coming in right now, in the passion of entrepreneurs to actually build tech businesses. If we don't begin to address those things that stifle innovation, that stifle scale, that's the other thing I wanted to talk about, that, this whole, helping companies to get to scale is very, very important. And no matter how you think about it, the entrepreneurs, yes, they're doing business on their own, they're doing business in spite of all the odds. But I think we need to get to a point where we have governments, we have policies and regulations that are actually supporting and not actually stifling and making it more difficult for these companies to grow and to scale.
Sorry, thank you very much. I had a little bit of technical issues there. I know you spoke about GB, moving to GB, I know he may be a bit hesitant to speak on, but you referenced that he's faced some issues. What would you say has been the toughest thing for you as a startup in the space?
So our job as a fintech company is to see problems and solve them, right? That's how we were able to build a business in the very first place, right? I mean, we had no business even existing. If in 2016 when we started, right, there were other payment companies in Nigeria, but we still saw a way to make the existing landscape even better, and that's how we got created. So right, so our job, like I said, is to solve problems. So at Follow Wave, we have always been at the forefront of that. The first one is, trying to solve the inter-African payments play. We know that Africa is our prize, not just Nigeria, and African Nigerians do not exist in isolation. In view of that, right, we are trying to make payments easier across the continent. Why should it be difficult for a merchant or a business in Kenya to send money to Nigeria, or in Nigeria send money to South Africa, and vice versa? As some of this infrastructure has been built, technology exists today, but regulation does not, for example, allow you to send money from Nigeria to somewhere else, right? Because of the FX landscape, which is understandable, right? But beyond that, right, it's better than it used to be. If you compete, I mean, we've been across Africa, right? Other central banks of Africa, of other African countries, and you've seen the forefront that you see the CBN is in compared to other countries. We've seen that, to be quite honest, right? But across board, our job at Flutterwave is to ensure that we solve problems, we make life simple for small businesses and large enterprises who are accepting payments across Africa, globally, or in Nigeria. And that is a job we've done consistently for the past 4 years, and we'll continue to do at Flutterwave. And the goal here is just making payments simple, right? Making it easy for a small business in Nigeria to receive money from anywhere in the world. Now that is possible because we've built technology infrastructure to make this to happen. Same for vice versa, sending money to suppliers all across the world. We've done that by integrating people like Alipay, direct MasterCard and Visa integration, American Express, and that is ensuring that we link Nigeria and Africa to the global economy, because Africa does not exist in isolation, right? We are connected, right? So that has made it simple for us in what we're doing. But I don't see that as, that's why we exist, right? To take these problems and turn into an opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that answer. Now, let's bring it back home. We're talking about the market, we're talking about regulation. We've touched on the role of lawyers. In our pre-session conversation, Mr. Dozie had mentioned this issue of democratization of legal services or legal access. And I see some comments as even before the questions are being sent about getting more access to legal services. I don't know, Mr. Dozie, would you mind just expanding on that point, especially focusing on legal services? I'm sorry, your mic, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, when I started the business, and I started a small business even before I started Sparkle, the whole process of actually getting the right documentations to do the business was actually very cumbersome and very confusing for me. And there are a lot of documents that you have to sign or read or not even understand. You just sign them because your lawyer told you to sign them all. And so it just makes, so those are the things that as a small business, you don't want to, the obstacle is already there. There's a lot of paper, there's a lot of cash that you have to pay, and there's a lot of logistics moving around, because once you have to sign a lot of paper, things have to move around. And then you also have to be able to afford someone who's actually going to guide you through that process. Now, and that's what I mean by democratization. How do I make it? I mean, and this is what banks used to do before. Banks used to say, okay, this is how we're going to bank. You guys regulate, or you guys figure out how you're going to work around us. So like, we're open from 9 to 5. So if your business is 9 to 5, well, you have to disrupt your business. And I think that's what, for us, that's what we need to do. We need some more education as to the legal services from a layman's term, from a very simple matter. How do we break the law down every time I say a document, I have to ask somebody to translate it to me in simple English. So those are the things. How can I just access over-the-counter services? Like, if there's some drugs that are over-the-counter drugs, there's some drugs where you need to see a physician. How can we do that? How can we do that from a legal perspective? How can we do that through mobile? How can we do that without having too much, without having wet signatures? I know that a lot of work is being done around that, but it is actually, and one thing that I have learned is that law so legal services are a strategic part of any successful business. How do I incorporate? So most people actually seek for lawyers when there's a problem or when they need to do something, but how do we integrate the law and legal services into business to better protect small businesses and make them more resilient? And knowing that the foundation of any successful economy is successful small businesses, and because they're the drivers of GDP, they're the drivers of employment and not government. If they don't have the right business support services, including legal services, then how far they can grow is going to be limited. So the more we democratize these services, the more that we can provide them at scale in a cost-effective manner, the more successful businesses are going to be, and the more successful the law industry is going to be as well.
Thank you very much for the answer. Dr. Johnson, I'm mindful of your time restricted, so I'd like to get your thoughts on this same topic, but also from investment documentation perspective. I noticed that especially when it's an international VC, a lot of terms are perhaps American terms, and is there really an understanding of how these terms would work in reality?
Yeah, it's a good point that you raise. Many of the, one thing that is actually missing, I think, is hello. Okay. One thing that is missing is the participation of our domestic lawyers in the documentation for many of the deals that we do, and that's because of the lack of knowledge and probably also the level of the VC industry in Nigeria. So a lot of our legal work is actually done by international lawyers, and I think that that's one area that that Nigerian lawyers can get involved in, where we're making sure that the kind of terms that are in those contracts, kind of clauses, make sense for us in this environment. Now, I'd also add, one of the biggest things in the world of tech is around intellectual property. And for many of the young entrepreneurs, this is their first business. They haven't run a business before. Many of our founders are in their sort of early 30s, some in their 20s, some in their mid 30s. And this is their first attempt or first experience of running a business. And many of these businesses are based on thought, on knowledge, on innovation, on intellectual thinking that is really coming from their own brains. And so being able to be sure that you can protect this intellectual property, this knowledge that they have, is really very important. And again, I think that's an area where the lawyers can help us, where people just don't give away their intellectual property. We can begin to streamline the patent processing, because some of the innovations that I have seen in many of the founders here are actually patentable. They're unique because our context is very unique in Nigeria and in Africa. And so some of these things are fairly unique. Some of these things are patentable, but they don't know where to go to actually patent these things. And when they do know where to go and go to a patent office, the process to get a patent is actually very difficult and very cumbersome, like Uzoma just mentioned. And maybe the final thing I'll say in terms of how can lawyers participate is, we see many of the things that we see in the world of tech is aggregation. When you aggregate, you make it easier for everybody to participate. And so being able to aggregate legal services, I know there's, without promoting any particular company, there's one company that I've come across, I think it's called DIY Law, set up by two young female lawyers. And what they've done is made the legal process for you to register your business, for you to ask questions. They made it very easy by just having a platform. And so you don't actually have to see a lawyer. You can actually ask a question. They can answer the question. They've actually broken down, again, going back to what Uzoma has said, some very complex legal documentation has been broken down into fairly simple English so that a young entrepreneur can understand it. And I think that's one thing that we need to start working on. If we're going to support this tech industry, and like I keep saying, the gems in the tech industry, the drivers of the tech industry are the entrepreneurs, like Benga of Flutterwave and all the entrepreneurs that you hear about. We need to find a way to support them so that they don't have to worry about all these necessary, legal documentation and intellectual property and patenting, by making it easier for them. And the best way to do that is to move the legal industry or lawyers into the technology world, where we can actually have these platforms that can support us and not require us to see a lawyer. Like, you don't have to see a banker to do banking. Why do I have to see a lawyer every time I need a legal service? If I can aggregate this and make it cheaper, democratizing I think is the word that Uzoma used. If I can make it cheaper and more accessible for entrepreneurs to access legal services, then I think that the legal industry would have done a great service to the tech industry. Thanks.
Great. Dr. George Junko, I want to get your point, your views on the same issue on the role of lawyers, particularly also in terms of a regulatory drafting perspective. Hello, sir. I think. Hello.
Yes, I'm online. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think one key societal institution that is likely to be impacted by these developments is, is law, and relatedly the legal profession. A law, whether understood as a profession, a method of solving dispute, a tool to achieve justice, a superstructure in the hands of the powerful to protect their interests, or more simply, an instrument to guide human behavior, is at its core an intellectual endeavor that depends on handling, storing, interpreting, and sharing knowledge as well as information. A recent advancement in digital technology are precisely transforming the ways in which information is created, stored, and conveyed. Moreover, these developments are making inroads into artificial knowledge production, thereby potentially entering the intellectual and human aspect of law. While triggering changes in institutions, practices, and values, these new developments also offer new possibilities and challenges to the legal profession. Having said this, lawyers have a very important role to play in the digital economy. That one, the opportunities available for lawyers will be that they could sharpen their skills by learning new ways of doing things. A lawyer's perception will have to be widened so that they'll be able to learn a lot more about the changing landscape. Also, lawyers are also needed in the drafting of regulations and legislation to govern our innovation. So you realize that for you to be able to appreciate and then be able to draft the right regulation, you must have knowledge in the field. And that is why lawyers are, the skills of lawyers will be required in this new technology, so that will enable them to appreciate and understand the import of whatever document or regulation that they have to draft to be able to meet the needs of the people in this changing business environment. Thank you very much. Maybe I don't know if you want me to add the judiciary, because they are all on the same level. Hello?
Yes, sorry. Yes, you can speak on the judiciary. Yes.
Yes. So of course, when it comes to the judiciary, you also agree with me that they have a role to to provide a proper and accurate interpretation of the law, and must know the workings of technology in order to provide the required interpretation. The judge who is interpreting the law, if he doesn't understand technology, will not be able to give accurate interpretation of the law. And therefore, judges must know and be conversant with the processes of this digital technology in order to apply in their daily working the right interpretation. Through the use of AI, references can be made to specific judgments and laws, as well as adapting processes such as digitization of court processes and then proceedings. So this also attests to the fact that the judiciary has a very important role to play in the development process of the law. In the midst of our new world. Thank you very much.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, yes, I disconnected briefly. Dr. Adeluyi, I want to get your perspective on the same issue. Also, have a question for you from Tendra, from Sandra Oyewole, asking that you refer to a particular institution that the Honorable Minister is the chairman of. Can you expand a bit on that?
Okay, so let me start with the second question. The institution I talked about is the NFMC, National Frequency Management Council. So that council is responsible for giving out bulk frequencies to organizations, right? So MBC is on that council, NCC is on that council. People that have to require frequencies, right, for their operations are usually on that council, and the minister is the chair. I hope that explains it. She can check the website of the ministry, comcheck.gov.ng, you get more details about that. Then back to the first question that asked about the role of lawyers. Maybe I should take you a bit back to what the Honorable Minister did when he was DG of NIDA. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so there's a NIDA scholarship program that focuses on people that want to advance their careers in the area of ICT by going for postgraduate studies. Because of the importance he places on the area of the IT regulations and the need for lawyers to be more integrated into the ICT sector, he introduced IT law cadre, as it were, for the NIDA scholarship. And while he was there, also created an e-government development and regulatory department, as well as a standard guidelines and framework department. So I said all that to say this, that he considers the role of lawyers to be very important in the development of the digital economy. So on what the lawyers can actually do, the lawyers can support, like other people have said, in recommending policies and regulations that we should focus on developing. I heard GB talking about some things, some areas that they have challenges. You can easily just get that info across to us, and we'll see how we can, make things a little bit easier for you. The first pillar I mentioned in the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy is actually developmental regulation. The reason it was called developmental regulation is because when people hear about regulation, it connotes stifling on of innovation, as it were. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to regulate, yes, but we're also trying to ensure that we do not stifle innovation. So we want to get input from lawyers on how we can get this ruling. So that's what I think the lawyers can do to support us.
Okay, maybe we can zero in more, because I like some of the things you mentioned.
Yeah.
But I think even beyond just support, lawyers, how can lawyers shape, play a role in shaping the environment? Deeper than just support now, how can the lawyers, the regulations, how can we play a role, participate in shaping the new laws that need to be created?
Okay, so if I may comment on that, the National Digital Economic Policy and Strategy was put together. We also had the National Broadband Plan. And in all this, while we embarked on these processes, we made sure we got some lawyers involved. So we try to integrate the lawyers into the entire stakeholder process so that we can get their perspective, and it can help to shape the type of policies and the regulations that we come up with. So I think that's the best way to get them involved. And of course, if something comes up that we're not already working on, lawyers can feel free to send a message to the minister or to any of his aides. We'll get back to you and see how we can work together to introduce it if we feel that it's something that can help to develop the sector.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I want to open the question up to our audience. This being the NBA question, NBA Association, we have people watching us live. Waiting on the questions from them. Okay, sorry, one of the questions that has been raised is that Benga did not, GB did not provide his own comments on role of lawyers in the space. So I guess I direct that to you. What lawyers can do in this? What can lawyers do to support a company like Flutterwave in its objectives?
I think as far as we're concerned, lawyers have played a very prominent role in our business. Our, keeping up our relationship with regulators, ensuring that we are abreast of every new law or any new regulation that is required to basically affect our business, both from not just the banking side, but the non-banking side, right? SEC side, data protection side, across the entire framework. The new CAMA laws, how it affects our, so we've already seen that already. I think compared to years and years ago, right, there's been massive improvement in how the lawyers are helping fintech companies to scale, and that we've seen across board. So from me, it's just consistency in the same level of service we've seen across board, and that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Adelui,
yes.
Another question for you on regulation from the audience. We've understood that you mentioned that yes, there's a role for collaboration and mutual benefit, but in there fundamentally, as technology begins to enter new spaces of entertainment and media, is there an argument that there will always be some sort of fundamental tension between technology, media, and regulators?
Well, traditionally, there's that tension, but just like we are having the new normal with COVID, we're trying to have a new normal with the different stakeholders. So what we want them to do now is to see themselves as partners in progress with us. So even though we're regulators, we're not out to stifle their businesses. We're here to help them develop. We're here to help them innovate. Where I will believe that they are not mutually exclusive. So we can have innovation as well as regulation.
Let me put that question to Mr. Dozie as well. Do you think that there will always be that fundamental tension between regulators and innovators?
Almost definitely, because I think there has to be a balance in which, because the regulator, one, I think, has a role to facilitate innovation as well, but also to protect and safeguard the people that this innovation is supposed to be for. And so you always find, and also to try and help foster a common standard as well, because you do have, regardless in any industry, cowboys and people who try to leverage, who try to take advantage. And so in doing that, they will always be backward looking. How was this last regulation held? Who are the people that are affected? Who are the people that are complaining? And but they should also try to also facilitate or be there when these things are actually being formulated. So I think the whole idea, as Benga said, the sandbox initiatives are one of those things that will also help them really begin to see what's happening, what's coming into the future. Because I mean, you don't want to start regulating what is not there, but you want to start looking at and playing a role, looking at what is coming into the future and how can we, start thinking about what the impact is and how we can start even testing something without actually bringing them out to law. So I think that's the way. I think we're going into a world now, and as you have seen with COVID, you have to partner and collaborate now for you to come up with solutions that will benefit and impact your audience. So it's no longer working as a silo, regardless of whether you're public sector or private sector. You have to actually work together, and that's I think that's where the world is going to.
Thank you, Mr. Dozie. Dr. Donko, another question for you on regional policy and Africanization and regionalization. And one of the big issues that I know has been an ongoing problem is cross-border payments. Situation whereby fintechs, for a variety of regulatory or even practical reasons, it's easier to pay a company in the US than a company that's at their border. I don't know if you see what way that technology and the law can change to, improve this sort of cross-border payments. But that's what a lot of these fintechs are now trying to leverage on. Sorry, sir, your mic is muted, sir.
Please, the question is not clear. Please, can you repeat your question?
Okay, I'm talking about the nature of cross-border payments. So, if I am, providing a service in Nigeria, and I want to provide that service in Ghana, sometimes it's easier for me to provide that service to a British or American company because there's already that relationship or integration, and to perhaps companies across Africa. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I think so. Basically, we are talking about the role of technology and regularization of currency. Am I right?
A bit, yes.
All right. Okay, right. I think that let me zoom into the ECOWAS region. I'm very much aware. I'm very sure that we are aware of the launch of the new currency, which is ECO. The digital technology has provided the channels to facilitate the process, big data, cloud computing, swift payment, etc. I'm sure our participants and stakeholders will be much aware of where we have gotten to with regard to the ECO. I'm using ECO because that is our sub-region now. As we speak now, some of the secondary and the primary convergent criteria have not been met by all the member countries. So the implementation should have been 2020 January, but as you may be aware, it has been shifted to 2030 by the heads of state, by all the stakeholders, because they want all the countries to be on board. Now, the issues are more than technology. We need to have the political and economic will. We need to have strong governance institution, non or partial achievement of criteria at different times. So there is a need for us to implement our Pan-African payment and settlement system type of structure for ECOWAS. We also need to fully implement a common platform for monitoring member state performance on the criteria. We must have a political will to follow through decisions and build stronger institutions. And of course, we need to continue exploring the use of technology. Now, as we speak now, as I said, member countries are making frantic efforts to be able to meet the primary and the secondary convergent criteria to enable us to come on board. Now, in direct response to your question, you agree with me that if this activity becomes a reality, then of course it will be very easier to transact business. If you're in Nigeria and you also want to transact business in Ghana, it becomes easier. And therefore, the role of technology is very key in this exercise. The two have to harmonize. Both the regularization and technology must come together to be able to bring this vision into a reality. So I think that is the response I can provide so far as this issue is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's a very good response, sir. Thank you very much. GB, sorry to come to you again, because I'm aware that Further Wave also operates in other African countries, I'm sure this is a problem you face in terms of cross-border payments, cross-border settlements. How do you, from a legal and I guess operational perspective, how do you sort of hedge those risks?
So we've been able to build a bank agnostic settlement infrastructure across Africa right now. So we can basically make it simple for any company using Further Wave to be able to pay their customers anywhere in Africa. It's easy on our platform and vice versa, right? We leverage banks obviously as our partners across board, right? But we have that infrastructure right now. Over the past 4 years, we focus on building that system that will make it simple for payments to happen for corporates across the continent. So that is today available on our platform.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dozie, this question was actually addressed to Ms. Johnson, but I think you are best placed to answer this because of some of the experiences you've already related. We know that there's probably an experience gap in the tech space, especially for lawyers. You know, there are only so few transactions happening in the market. Only a few lawyers perhaps have access to these transactions. And, you know, if you're only doing 1 or 2 transactions a year, you know, there may be that experience gap. So how can, you know, young lawyers watching, how can they close that experience gap? You know, what do you think would be the best way, you know, for them to try and, you know, get more understanding of this tech ecosystem?
Thank you very much. You know, I don't think it's only lawyers that are going through this challenge. I think it's every industry, whether it's health, education, legal, or professional services. And, you know, like I said, it is like, like you find that a lot of entrepreneurs have, you know, jumped onto the digital wagon. People that do, for example, marketing, not many people actually, people have found like social media is a great place for them to advertise what they're doing, get new customers, talk to them, communicate and connect with people. And also using those devices that they already have. And like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, for example, how do I get my payments without using cash? So being cashless, being paperless, being contactless. And it is so, and information is everywhere. All you have to go to Google and say, how do I do this? And you will see all that information. It's a no-brainer. And you know, and I will end by saying, no, there was an old adage, you know, cash is king, right? But you know, cash is king and it's easier, it's convenient, and it's transmittable. But during the lockdown, you found that if you couldn't move from point A to point B, how do you move cash? If you couldn't move from point A, how do you move to the villages, to the farmers, to everything? So clearly, we have seen the limitations of cash in the new age. We've seen the limitations of paper, where nobody could move things physically. It's only electronically or digitally. So clearly, as any business, including lawyer, what we should be asking ourselves is, if we had to have another lockdown, how would I transform my business so that I will still be able to connect with my customers? And you know, it is just by understanding how do I connect with my customers and what are the solutions out there, and really and truly start with go to Google and say, how do I? That's actually one of the most that's one of the most frequent questions globally that people use in Google. And you know, really, I think you find that the coming generation, they don't ask their parents questions. They go to Google first, then their parents either validate or they're testing them. And so I think that is how even we who are digital aliens should start approaching this.
Thank you very much. Same question a bit. I want to move to Dr. Olufemi Adeluyi. On this issue of you know, cloud computing, you know, and cloud policy, you know, is there a role for lawyers in that? Or what is the role for lawyers? Because I think there definitely is a role. But what's the role for lawyers in that space?
I think there's a very important role for lawyers. You know, when we talk about cloud computing and we talk about the data and where it is hosted, this data sovereignty and all that, the main issue that one is trying to address is the issue of privacy. Do you agree?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the issues relating to data protection, the NDPR, are things that are handled by lawyers. So I think lawyers have a critical role to play because of the issue of data and the issue of privacy.
Okay. Also, you know, I think we've been talking a lot about, you know, regulations and how lawyers can, you know, improve in terms of regulations. But also, I want to ask the question about, I think it's from Malik Akombi in the audience, and his question is around the role of, you know, legal training. You know, so beyond even regulations, you know, can we train lawyers to be, you know, better, to be more tech adept, you know, so that the new lawyers that are coming out from law school are already prepared for a world of legal tech? a world of digital resources, is there sort of something that the ministry is looking towards? Because that's something I'm sure that a lot of young lawyers would love the opportunity to be trained in that sort of space.
Absolutely. I started when I was relaying the story about how the minister sees the importance of the lawyers. I talked about the introduction of an IT law track, as it were, for NIDA scholarship programs. And in the same vein, the other programs that we're running, we're opening them up to all strata of society, including lawyers. So for example, we're doing a lot of things relating to emerging technologies. Obviously, these technologies have just come, I mean, are growing. I mean, they're new, as it were, right? So we expect that there will be some legal implications down the line. So this is a good time to get the lawyers involved in the training, get the lawyers to know more about 5G, about big data analytics. So when we come to the part of policy making, the part of regulations, we can get people that wear two hats. They wear the hat of the from the knowledge point of view, as well as the hat of from the legal point of view. So when they come with those two aspects, they'll be able to give us a balanced view on the things that we should do concerning policy. So yes, we are very interested in integrating lawyers into our training programs.
Thank you very much, sir, for that response. Question for Mr. GB Abola from Israel Oguniro. He says, in respect of cybercrime and hacking, do you think Nigerian laws and lawyers are competent to handle matters like this?
Yeah, I do think so. I think, I mean, I don't want to mention our lawyer's name on this call, right? I do believe that Nigerian lawyers are competent. You'll be surprised at what they can do when you approach them with these issues. I mean, we've had the luxury of working with a lot of Nigerian lawyers, and we've gotten very excellent support across the board. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that response. So I think that's a vote of confidence a bit if GB gives Nigerian lawyers. Mr. Dozie, do you agree? Sorry, your mic is muted. Sorry.
Well, the core lawyers learned people, so what they don't know, they learn very quickly. Now, one thing I can say is that the only time in my experience, we've actually needed foreign lawyers is when it was required from a jurisdiction perspective as a banker. But clearly, I think we just had a session with our legal representatives last week on the data law, data privacy, and they were up to date. They were giving suggestions, and they were very strategic in our rulemaking. So, it just goes down. In terms of, yes, there are one or two or three law firms that understand these things, but how many do, and how? When you consider that there are 40 million businesses, small businesses out there, and there are a lot of law firms, how many of those law firms can give advice on that? How many law firms can I talk to you and say, okay, you know what? I'm creating a solution in which I want to help people teach them. How many people will give me that expert advice? So, as people have been saying, we need to, and this cuts across all education, not just law. A lot of education is going to require for people in different industries to, be able to engage and participate in the new economy, especially as the world is becoming connected. So it's not just Nigerians, but it's Nigerians who want to trade. For example, you want to export to the next country. How are you going to make sure that your systems or the systems they're going to use are in compliance with just the whole that business environment that you're playing with? So a lot of opportunities for different businesses, especially lawyers. So the more we can invest in that education, the better businesses are going to be.
Thank you very much for that response. Okay, as we round up, I just want to get from the panel, any final comments they may have. Dr. Adelui, any last words you want to give to us lawyers, so that as we go off?
See us as partners in progress, not as villains. So just cooperate with us, send things in. I mean, a trial will convince you. Let me put it that way. So please, we're very eager to partner with the lawyers, with the MBA. Anything you think that can be done to support the development of digital economy, please just send the info in.
Do you mind me asking what your website or portal is, if any lawyer is interested in checking out?
Yes, it's comtech.gov.ng.
So that is comtech.gov.ng.
Yes. Yeah, comtech.gov.ng.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Dr. George Donko, any last words for the MBA in terms of any parting advice you want to give us? I'm sorry, your mic is muted, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. My advice, the recession and financial crisis that entered in 2009 caused a seismic shift that has reshaped the global business landscape. The world economy is now characterized by sluggish growth in West Africa, a shift in power to the east, and value-driven customers and rising rates everywhere. At the same time, the downturn has hastened the adoption of key technologies, mobility, cloud computing, business intelligence, and social media, as we have just mentioned, today, that are transforming businesses and sparking a new wave of wealth creation, particularly in the emerging world. Economic growth and technology are inextricably linked. Current economic conditions are fostering investment in technology as emerging markets ramp up their demand for technology to fuel growth, and advanced markets seek new ways to cut costs and drive innovation. This becomes a virtuous circle as digital technologies drive consumer income and demand, education and training, and efficient use of capital and resources, leading to increased economic growth, particularly in emerging markets. Lawyers cannot be left out in this exercise. So my advice is that all lawyers, especially the MBA, should embrace the reality of the time, that is the digital economy, and be able to address all lapses and bottlenecks that will impede our effort in embracing this effort in order to continue to be in business. I thank you very much for your attention.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Donko. Mr. Dozie, as you know, you're an industry veteran, even though you're taking on the hat of a fintech. What are your thoughts on your final thoughts you want to give to the MBA?
I think my final thought would be on this digital adoption. And digital adoption is going to require a lot of paradigm shift, culture changes, and change of these habits. And that means it requires leadership. Strong, I talk about digital leadership. And it is not one of those things that you can delegate to people. People need to see you doing it and using it. And so if you're going to be successful, and especially, so it's going to be a challenge for the leaders who, are going to actually go through the most disruption. But if you don't do that, nobody will follow. So it's not a case of do as I say, not as I do. They have to be seen doing it. And if he can do it, then everybody can do it. And that is how, so in my experience, once the leadership is doing it, right, it is either nobody else can do it. There's no hiding place. So digital leadership is going to be key, not only in the MBA, but across all the organizations. If as an economy, we're actually going to see large adoption and utilization, leverage of digital.
Thank you very much for that. Final words from GB. Sorry, I feel like we disturbed you a lot today. What are your final thoughts for the audience, going forward, in terms of how can they be more involved in the space?
Yeah, so just to mention that FlutterWave, we built a FlutterWave store that allows anyone to put anything online and sell at zero cost. You can try at flutterwave.com/store, right? That's what I would just say. Anybody can basically, you're writing your next legal law book or whatever lawyers sell these days. You can put it on there, or you want someone to pay for your services, you can put it there, and you can get paid from anywhere in the world through FlutterWave. Thank you very much.
I need to stress that to the audience, actually. All, because FlutterWave and many other payment platforms will allow you to receive, payments digitally from your clients. You can accept card payments and from different countries. Thank you very much to the panelists for their for being here, making time, and for their responses. It's been very enlightening. I just want to take this little time to thank Mrs. Christine Sijuwade and Mr. Rotimi who from the SBL, who basically coached me and prepared me for this session, as well as Mr. Riwan Shitu from Olaniwajai, who is part of the technical committee for the session. Thank you very much to our panelists, and I hope and I wish a good day to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.